Welcome back to another episode of Broke Up, Not Broken. I'm your host, Jamie Lima, and founder of Allegiant Divorce Solutions, where we help people prepare for, navigate, and recover financially from divorce. This podcast is your one-stop shop for mastering your life and your finances throughout the entire divorce process. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Josh Tomeoni, a seasoned financial planner just like myself, world-class coach, and the charismatic host of the Derelict Podcast. As someone who embraces the complexities of success and failure, Josh provides a platform for men to discuss their struggles authentically and openly. Today, we're going to dive into how facing failure head on can lead to substantial personal and financial growth, especially in the wake of a divorce. So grab a cup of coffee or your beverage of choice, buckle up, and let's once again get you financially and personally empowered. Hey, Josh, it's so great to have you here today, man.
Jamie, thanks for having me, man. That intro, I don't know if I can live up to it. I'll do my best, though. It's fantastic.
I'm sure you're going to be. This is going to be awesome. I, as our listeners know, I talk to people from all walks of life on this show. We've had some mental health professionals. We've had some financial professionals like ourselves, accountants and tax people. We've had some attorneys on here. But as a financial planner myself, and I know you're a CFP as well. I have a special place in my heart for folks like you, especially people that have gone through a divorce and have some experience with this line of work as you do. So I'm super happy to have you here, man.
Thank you so much. I mean, we're united, right? Finance guys, been through divorce, trying to help guys go through it themselves. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And that's we were kind of talking about, and I'm glad you just mentioned that here, like guys, right? Like so many of our listeners, so many of our participants in our Facebook groups and, the webinars and seminars that we do, a lot of the clients, 95% of the people that we work with, not by choice, but just by default, have been women. And are women that are participating and getting all the help. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, as a dude, just like myself, who has gone through divorce. Mine was incredibly challenging and very expensive. I don't know. We haven't talked about what your experience was like, but I'd love to hear some of your thoughts about men going through divorce and maybe like why they don't ask for help, maybe why they should be asking for help. And I just want to let you have the floor here, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been my experience as well. I don't have the same designations as you do, but I've worked with several divorcing women specifically, even in my financial career as well. And it's always been women. I don't know why. I don't think I've ever worked with one divorcing male ever until I started my coaching company. And now I work with a bunch of guys. But I found the same thing on social media with anything that I post, with my own podcast, et cetera. The whole thing is geared around focusing on men. And yet I still sometimes get more female viewers, more female commenters, and I think that there's, maybe we should just start with what is societally acceptable, right? So I don't know about your experience. My experience has been if a woman needs help, and she goes to therapy or she gets coaching or something else, generally speaking, society says, good for you. You deserve it. You should do it. That's awesome. Congratulations, right? It's usually, I think, met with a lot of optimism. Versus if a man does that, from my experience, usually the response is, what the hell is wrong with you? So let's just start with that.
Yeah, you're weak.
You're weak.
You can't
man
hang.
Up, bro. Man up.
Yeah.
You can't do it yourself. Why not? So maybe just starting with that, I don't want to go into a long history lesson of why that is, because I don't even know necessarily. Yeah. But I think that that's part of it. I think that there is this idea, at least, I'll speak from my own experience. I grew up very much in a household that is just figure it out, right? Get back up on the horse, get back, pull yourself up by your bootstraps is what I used to hear from my grandpa all the time. If you fall, just pick yourself back up. Don't deal with it. A lot of that stoic attitude of you're not really supposed to feel emotions. You're not really supposed to go through the emotional process. You're a man. Just deal with it. And frankly, it's all over social media. It's all over the media. I feel like as men in society today, we kind of have two options, right? We can go kind of the Homer Simpson route or any TV show route where we're just a goofball and people just laugh at us because we're a man, especially as a dad. I'm a dad. It's just, you're either the goofball dad that no one really takes seriously, like, okay, dad, et cetera. Or you're the other guy that's like the total jerk right? That everyone's just trying to avoid because he doesn't know how to control his emotions and he just flies off the handle all the time. Yeah. We don't get a lot of examples, at least from what I see, about somebody who's actually processing their emotions, going through things, dealing with them real time. At least that's been my experience. Yeah. So I think maybe that's part of it. I think that a lot of guys, and I'll speak for myself. So when I went through my divorce, I didn't hire a coach and I didn't have a certified divorce specialist like yourself helping with my finances. I didn't do either one of those. Mm-hmm. I did the typical, tried to go through mediation first. Wife at the time didn't want to. She wanted to use attorneys. So then I decided to hire an attorney. And then I just kind of thought the attorney was going to be the end all be all. And frankly, they weren't. And they made a lot of mistakes. And I had a great attorney that I spent multiple six figures on. And still there was mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. I know we'll probably talk about this later, but I wrote an ebook earlier this year to talk to the men of the 5 biggest traps to avoid when going through a divorce and how to avoid them. And trap number 2, which is one of the most important ones, is trusting the wrong team. And in that chapter, I specifically talk about the fact that just hiring an attorney when going through a process like this is a huge mistake. Could cost you 6, 7, 8 figures, depending on what your net worth looks like.
Yeah, it's what you're talking about is everything I talk about too. And if you've had a chance to listen to any of the previous shows or you follow us on social media, we talk about Team You all the time, creating Team You. And it's so good to hear somebody else who has been in my shoes and in the same shoes as other people that are listening and have reached out to get the help. It's that you also concur with doing the same thing. I mean, I am not the dude that you described earlier, where it's like where I poo-poo and look down on people that get the mental health support that they need and get the family support they need and the just surround themselves with loved ones. I'm not that guy. I didn't do that, which was the biggest mistake in my own divorce. I didn't create Team You, which is now I'm realizing, looking back, like that was one of the bigger mistakes I made. And I just try to make sure that, get that message out there so nobody else steps in the same landmine, so to speak, that I did. And I'm super appreciative that you've shared that, because it's good to hear from other people that have been down the same path that they too agree with it.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Absolutely. It's really important. And to your point as well, there might be some guys listening or watching this right now that are thinking, well, I'm good with that. I'm okay with people getting help and that sort of thing, but then they don't do it themselves. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, well, I can do it. Like I had a little bit of a unique situation just being a financial planner going through it. I didn't feel like I needed to hire another financial planner to help me with it. However, that being said, I've hired financial planners in the past, even as a financial planner, because there's just something, even if it's your expertise and what you do for a living, there's still something about having somebody else's set of eyes on things that's really, really helpful. It's the same thing with a coach. You would think, well, I coach people all day long. I don't need a coach. That's not true. Yeah. I have a coach. I have multiple coaches because I want to make sure that my coaching continues to increase as their coaching continues to increase, right? Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. Maybe we'll just address that chapter here real quick.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So I would say probably the 2 most common people on the team that I see missed. And this is for all your viewers. They already know that you do financial planning, but seriously, reach out to Jamie because the financial piece is huge. Here's one of the main reasons why. Get ready for this. If you're an attorney listening, I apologize, but it's true. Attorneys suck at numbers. I'll repeat that. Attorneys suck at numbers. And that's okay. You don't want them to be good at numbers. That's not their job. Their job is to help you get as much time with your kids as possible, if that's your goal. Make sure that things are equitably divided. Make sure that the contention goes down as much as possible, and make sure that you get through this horrific process of your divorce. Attorneys are very, very needed. I work with attorneys all the time. Huge fan. And they suck at numbers. So do not expect an attorney to give you the right numbers as far as your finances, as far as your alimony, as far as your child support, even as far as dividing up your assets, because for them to try to calculate things like how much money should you get from a retirement account that hasn't been paid taxes on, et cetera, their minds just explode. If you ask them to look at your tax return and you're a self-employed business owner, their minds explode and they don't understand. Even though you're making zero money on your tax returns, but you're living $1 million lifestyle, they don't know how that works. They also don't know how to separate it and then how much money to give your ex-spouse. So be really, really careful with that. Hire somebody like Jamie. Number 2, Like you said, Team U, extremely important. I see a lot of people going to therapists, which I did. I had a therapist at the time. Huge fan. Also talk about therapists in the book. However, there's a big difference here. A lot of people sometimes wonder, what is the difference between a therapist and a coach? So I'll help explain that for a moment. A therapist's primary job is to help you deal with your childhood trauma, whatever trauma you have brought into your adult life, whatever that is. If you haven't moved past it, you haven't grieved it, you haven't healed it, that's what a therapist is for. Huge fan of therapists, had a therapist for years, etc. What a therapist's job isn't, and a really good therapist will tell you this, a therapist's job is not to coach you into the future. That's not their job. Their job is to help you review the past, to remove that from your future. Their job is not to help coach you into the future. So let's go back to the situation of going through a divorce. Again, a therapist is going to be very helpful dealing with maybe how do you deal with your ex-spouse through this, especially if it's contentious. Dealing with the filters that are popping up for you that you're having a hard time dealing with moving forward with this. Huge fan of that. What they're not going to be able to help you with is how do they coach you moving forward into what does the next stage of your life look like? For everybody going through divorce, it ends with you 2.0. A therapist is not qualified, experienced, or educated in order to help coach you into you 2.0. That's what a coach is for. Specifically, though, I would say, and this is not to toot my own horn, there's plenty of us out there, but specifically find somebody who's been divorced. That would just make sense, right? Like somebody that's been through a contentious, difficult divorce to help coach you through a contentious, difficult divorce. It's kind of like trying to explain to your friend that has kids or doesn't have kids, what having kids is like. You're like, I have a dog, I understand. Really? No, you don't. You have a dog, I have 3 children. That is not the same thing. And you're not going to understand it until you have 3 children. Then you'll understand it. Then you'll come back to me and be like, oh man, I was way off.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah. It's the same thing with a coach, right? Like, what are you going to trust somebody who hasn't even been through the process themselves?
Yeah. Well, and I think you brought up so many good points that I could go back to, but one of them is earlier you were talking about like even as a financial professional getting the help that you need, and you wished you would have had that financial help, right? It's like the whole the landscaper with the worst lawn on the block. You don't want to be that guy, right? So if you're a man and you're out there in this world, you're in the world of finance or accounting, or maybe you're an attorney or what have you. Maybe it would make sense to reach out to someone like myself and get some coaching from somebody like Josh to be able to help you navigate this. And I don't know, man. I think it's
and part of it. Can I just say something real quick? Part of the reason for that too is that if you're going through a divorce or you've been through a divorce, this is going to be a no-duh statement, what I'm about to say. If you haven't been through it yet and maybe you're about to go through it, this might not be a no-duh statement for you. From my experience, everyone I've ever talked to that goes through divorce, their mind and soul and spirit is so consumed with the process that you literally can't think straight because your entire body is either in flight or freeze pretty much the entire time you're going through the process. So in that situation, your mind literally cannot think correctly. So because of that, even if it is your expertise, having another set of eyes on it, and I'm not being dramatic here, can save you 6, 7, 8 figures in money. It can save you having way more time with your kids. I lost a good amount of time with my kids because of some dumb mistakes that I made at the beginning and that I then had to rectify and pay 6 figures to get back. I lost a good amount of money, even though I'm a financial guy, just having to deal with this stuff because I didn't have a coach going through it. So I made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. You too, Jamie, right?
And exactly. And I don't know anything about your financial situation. We did not talk about it before our conversation here today, but I'm going to venture to guess you, just like myself, don't make LeBron James kind of money. Right.
No,
so like,
I make good money. I'm very blessed. I'm very grateful for what I do, but I definitely am not, Taylor Swift or LeBron James.
Yeah. So why are dudes like us paying 60, 70? I think I'm probably creeping up on $100,000 in my own divorce, right? It's well beyond, past me, thankfully. But even just in the last couple of years where we've had to look at like alimony was going to end and we need to recalculate child support. And now I own a business. So, ooh, you must be hiding money because that's what business people do. Like, we were back in the court system again for another $20,000. It's just a gigantic waste of money. So, like, I'm picking up what you're putting down with everything you say, man. I hope our listeners do. One of the things that I keep thinking about as you're kind of walking me through your mindset around this and the work that you do and some of the comments that you made is like this concept of resiliency, right? Like this, and I know you've been through some stuff, right? Through your own divorce, you've already told us about that. So, like, if I'm one of your clients and you're speaking to me and I'm in the throes of my divorce and I'm feeling all the things that you just mentioned, right? Like, because I was there too. Like, I had adrenal fatigue. I had some health issues cropping up that I was able to thankfully, overcome and really just, get beyond and not let them really dramatically impact my health, thankfully. But it can do some damage to you. So, like, how do you handle all of that? If I'm coming to you and I'm in the throes of it, what do you, how do we work together? What are some of the things you're going to, exercises you're going to take me through, whatever, what do I need to do? And what are some things that practically people can do that are listening that, might be in the throes of it could use?
I appreciate you asking that because, so going back to the ebook, trap number 3, actually, it's almost like you're prompting me for this. And by the way, for all the listeners, he hasn't read the book either, just so you know. But literally number 3 is tossing self-care aside because it's something that's extremely easy to do in that process. Physical health, mental health, emotional health. And as guys specifically, this I think is really, really important, especially in the world we live in. Because I don't know about you, but every time I get on any sort of social media outlet, probably 80-20 rule, 80% of the guys are talking about something physical. Mm-hmm. Get to the gym, get bigger muscles, get a 6-pack. Everything's going to be fine as long as you're physically okay, which is just not true. Mm. Now, can a lot of the mental stuff start with that? Sure, it can. So one of the things that we do talk about is we do talk about the physical, but this is not to get jacked. This is not to have a body to make your ex jealous, which, I've been there before. I get what that's like. So, but that's not the reason. The reason why is so that you can free up mental capacity. That's why exercise and keeping health is so important during this process. So some of the things we talk about is just diet. We talk about health. We talk about sleeping. We talk about eating. We talk about just getting your body moving, physiology. But most of it, honestly, is mental, just like it is in anything else. Anyone that's listening that's ever done anything hard or started a business or done anything like that, you know that it's 80% up here, right? You mentioned LeBron James earlier. LeBron James wins up here. He doesn't win, even though he hasn't, a body made for basketball, and he works that out as much as he can, and he has an amazing amount of talent, and he works his butt off, right? He's still winning the game up here. Yeah. As they used to say, of Kobe, right? Mamba mentality, right? Mm-hmm. Michael Jordan, anyone, any sports guy that you want to use, Tom Brady, whoever. So we work on that a lot. During a divorce, though, it's really hard, at least it was for me and the guys that I work with, to somehow feel like the most confident guy in the world, right? Like, you're going through this terrible process. You're having this person that maybe, especially if it's contentious, is really difficult. How are you supposed to feel that way? So what we spend a lot of time on is, it's going to maybe sound a little cliche, but just visioning what 2.0 looks like. So the very first thing, just practically for everybody listening, watching, here's what I would encourage you to do, especially if you're going through this. And by the way, this is not just if you're going through divorce. If you're going through any sort of relationship transition, or you just went through one, or you're going through a job change, if you're at any part where you're like, I'm feeling a little insecure, maybe less confident right now, here's the very first thing that I would recommend you do. And it's very, very simple. Get yourself in a good state. How do you get yourself in a good state? Usually move your body has to be a part of it. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to lift heavy weights. It could be a walk. It could be jumping up and down. It could be dancing. It could be, open up a fun YouTube channel, whatever, listening to fun music. There's a lot of different ways to move your body to change your physiology. Yeah. Feel free to reach out to me if you want some specific ways. Well, I'll give you my information in a second. So moving your body is key. In order for our brains to remember things, we have to add movement in order to remember them. Let me give you a perfect example for this to prove my point for anybody that's like, yeah, that's not true. When have you ever gone to a business conference or any sort of conference, sat there for hours, didn't remember crap afterwards? Or even if you took real great notes, How long was it until you didn't do what was in those notes? A day, 2 days, 3 days, a week? Part of the reason why, and so one of my, the GOAT, as far as anyone is ever concerned for me, I have a huge man crush on him, is Tony Robbins. And one of the things that he's really big about is moving your body, physiology during his conferences, which I go to all the time because they're amazing. And science shows that if you are trying to learn something and you're trying to change the neural pathways in your brain, you also have to move your body while you're thinking these things in order to get there. So here's a very simple exercise. Move your body, get yourself in a good state. Don't lie to yourself that you're in a good state. Get yourself into a good state. When you're in that prime key state, sit down, get out a piece of paper and write me 2.0 at the top. And just write what you want your life to look like. There's a couple keys to this. One, don't shame yourself. This is not an exercise to say, oh, my life sucks right now. I wish it could be like this. No, there's nothing about this. This is just a dreaming exercise. Pretend like you are, my youngest child is 7. Pretend like you're 7. And pretend like this is a creative, oh my goodness, there's unicorns and Santa and everything else sort of an exercise. Okay, just dream. And just write down what all that looks like. Include your ideal partner, your ideal future mate if you ever want one again. You might not want one right now. You might be feeling negative about that, but just let it be, right? Maybe you have a crush on an actress. Fine, write her information down there. Start manifesting that. I have one. I'm not going to tell you. Maybe I'll tell you later, Jamie. I've been manifesting that for a couple of years now. We'll see if it ever happens. If it does, I'll let you know. Write that down. Right? This is not just about money. This is like how I want to feel, what I want my life to be like, what my purpose is, what my mission is. And don't go through like those boring business exercises where you go through a business plan. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying a blank piece of paper, just spew out your vision for your life. And frankly, if you do that and you look at that every single day, you're going through a divorce or you're going through a hard time. If you did that for 3 months, how do you think you're going to feel after that last 3 months?
It's the vision board scenario, right? I mean, that's why people make vision boards.
Absolutely.
And we go through the same experience and exercise, and not related to divorce, but in similar fashion with the financial planning clients we work with. I know you do this, right? Like that's part of the CFP process as a certified financial planner. One of the very first things you have to do with your clients is just know the client, right? And get an understanding of what your goals and objectives are. So I love this, man. I think I'm a big planner by nature, right? Like, I mean, I business plan and I have goals that I set for myself every year, and you have to keep reminding yourself of that. And that's another reason why I have a stand-up desk. I stand up from 7 o'clock in the morning till 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening when work is over. And that's because I feel like I absorb information much better than if I were just sitting down. Right. So it's like, I'm a big fan of this stuff, man. I'm so glad you brought this up.
Yeah. And, I think it's, again, just speaking of the people that have been surrounded by me for a long time, is that as a guy and as a business owner, we all know this stuff already intrinsically, just as far as our business goes, right? Like we have to vision, we have to do all this. But where I see there being a big lack is, what about me 2.0? We're not talking about business here. We're not talking about money. We're not talking about success. We're not talking about what you want for your business or what car you want or what boat you want. None of that stuff. We're just talking about what's your ideal life.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people spend time with that. Frankly, I haven't before the last few years.
Yeah.
It wasn't ever really, it was more about like, well, what business do I want? What do I want for my kids? What do I want for the car? All that sort of stuff. But it wasn't like, well, what's my ideal life though? What does that look like? How do I give back to humanity the best? What's my real mission in life? And a divorce, oh man, even though it is so brutal, brother, as you know, it's such an amazing opportunity for you to look at that.
Because you get to reinvent yourself. Just like you just said. I mean, you've been talking about it for the last couple of minutes. I mean, this is an opportunity for you to really have the life and live the life that you really wanted. Right. And we handle all the financial aspects of divorce. And there's a lot we could talk, for another half an hour on how this impacts the financials. But I mean, if you can get your head right and you get that vision, you're going to make better financial decisions when it comes time to put pen to paper and sign on the dotted line on that divorce decree or marital settlement agreement, or whatever your state calls it. But again, another missed exercise that I didn't go through during my own divorce. And that's the whole point of this conversation, which I'm so thankful you're bringing this stuff up, is like, these are landmines that people step in all the time. And I'm, we've got to help them avoid them.
Absolutely.
This is the what I always call the carte blanche segment of our show as we're getting ready to wrap up here. But I know you have the ebook, so talk a little bit more about the ebook, and then if there's anything else that any other questions or anything I should have asked that I didn't ask that you'd like to share with our listeners, I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Yeah. So the other thing that I mentioned to you earlier as well that I'll mention to all the listeners is I do also want to offer all your listeners something just because you had me on the podcast today. So my ebook is on Amazon. Feel free to look up my name and go find it there right now. Or if you want, find me on Instagram. I'm the Derelict Podcast. Maybe Jamie can add it to the show notes. Mm-hmm. But just go on Instagram, the Derelict Podcast, and DM me the word Allegiant, as in Allegiant Divorce Solutions. Just DM me the word Allegiant, and I will know that you want the ebook, and I'll send it to you for free. So again, it's the 5 traps men face when going through a divorce and how to triumph over them. I think it's going to be really helpful for you. So again, DM me on Instagram, the Derelict Podcast, the word Allegiant, and I'll send it to you. But as we wrap up, let me skip ahead to number 5, which I think this makes 3 of the 5 we've talked about today, right? So again, DM me if you want the other 2. Number 5 is your relationships after you continue to move forward with the divorce. So tanking relationships past divorce is number 5. They're all T's. Mm-hmm. This one's tanking relationships. The number one thing, when I wrote this ebook, I went out to many people and interviewed them all the same thing. I basically sent out a survey to a bunch of people on my list that went through a divorce that I've known either as friends, as people that I've coached, as just business partners, across the board. I asked them all what the top things that they wish they could redo from their divorce. Ironically enough, it was pretty much the same that I was already thinking of writing the book. It's amazing how similar this is no matter what your divorce looks like. But I would say that number 5 was the biggest one that I heard from all of them. And that was, I dated too soon. Every single person. I dated too soon. They dated a day after, I dated too soon. They dated 6 months, they waited 6 months, I dated too soon. They waited 2 years, I dated too soon. Same answer. Didn't matter how long they waited. Everyone gave me the same answer. Why? So we're not going to talk about timing here because there is no magic number. Don't ask me for a magic number. There's all these theories online. Even if you type it in AI, they probably give you a theory like half the time that you're with your partner, or at least a year, or 6 months past every full moon or something. There's all these weird things. There is no number. Here's what I'd say though. The reason every single one of them told me the same thing, which is true for my life as well, of too soon, is because they started dating before they actually went through the grieving process themselves and before they actually healed themselves. So when they went out to find somebody else, they put some of that healing process on that person. If you've ever been in a relationship where you've put part of your healing process on someone else, tell me that it worked, because I've never heard that before. If you put your healing process on anyone else besides yourself, it will not work. I promise you. I promise you. It's one of the tenets of any healing group that you could be a part of. You have to do it yourself, between yourself, your higher power, your universe, your God, whatever you call it. It has to be there and here. That's it. It cannot be because of somebody else. Somebody else cannot heal for you. So my words of encouragement would be that you're not going to be single forever, and it's okay to take time now. And if you don't, like I didn't, again, failure again, like I didn't, it will be only harder the next time around. I promise you that. Because I had a couple of long-term relationships after my marriage so far at this point in my journey. Both of them probably didn't heal as much as I should have, and it was brutal afterwards. I remember hearing this before I got divorced. I was a part of this divorce group, and everyone in the group said the same thing. They said the relationship that they went through after their divorce was harder when they broke up than their actual divorce. And these are people that had the most contentious divorces I've ever heard of that made mine look like simple divorce. And I always thought in my head, that doesn't make any sense. How is that even possible? And then I went through it and I was like, oh, it makes sense. Because now I'm a little bit healed. I found somebody that probably fits me better. and then that relationship ends, oh man, there's aspects of that are even brutal than my marriage that I knew was bad in a lot of ways ending. Ooh. So my encouragement to you is you're not going to be single forever. Take some time. It's amazing what you can do in 6 months, a year, 2 years to work on yourself and become that 2.0. And also, here's the other thing. Here's the selfish reason for it. If you become ideal 2.0 yourself, guess who you're going to attract? It's going to be the person that's attracted to 2.0, which is the person that you want to attract. If you're going out there without healing yourself, you're going to attract a lot of the same stuff. And I say you because I did the same thing. So that would be my biggest encouragement for people going through a process like that is it's okay to pause and wait. You don't have to be like 100% perfect when you start dating again. Don't hear this the wrong way. But just get to a point where others see it in you. Maybe you have a coach working with you through this. And there's other things you can do without dating. You can go have conversations with people, especially somebody that's been in a marriage a long time and maybe don't even know how to date again. That was my experience. Just go start talking to people. Talk to people at the coffee shop, etc. But you don't have to do it in order to jump into another long-term relationship that might just be even more brutal than the last one you got out of.
Man, that is a powerful message right there. I did not wait. Thankfully things have worked out so far, but I see this happen all the time, right? Like people jump into other relationships and the next thing you know, that one fails and then it's, oh, woe is me and what's wrong with me. And it's really just that you just need to take a beat and figure some things out. And I'm so glad that, man, that you shared all this with us today. I know we're already coming up on time. We could keep going for another half an hour, but I'm not going to take up all your day. And I want to make sure we'll be brief and be gone for our listeners. But I really appreciate this, man. This has been very, very, very powerful. And I'll make sure that anybody that's listening today, of course, follow Josh's instructions regarding his Instagram. DM him, and it was Allegiant, right? You want everybody to DM you Allegiant to get the copy of the book?
It's Instagram is the Derelict Podcast, and just DM me the word Allegiant, and I'll send you the ebook.
Amazing. We're going to put all the links and everything in the show notes so everybody will have them so they can get in touch with you. I really, really appreciate your time, man. And for our listeners who want to connect with Josh and explore the Derelict Podcast, head over to his other social media platforms. We'll make sure, we'll put all the links in the show notes and give him a follow. And if you're navigating your own financial or personal challenges, remember that Allegiant Divorce Solutions, we're here to help and offer you as much support as we possibly can. You can visit us at allegiantds.com, book a complimentary and confidential conversation with us to help you get the support that you need. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on all the socials and whatnot to get more updates on our upcoming shows and other announcements. But until next time, thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.